This video is going to talk about relative clauses, which are also called adjective clauses. And they have that name for a very good reason. It's because they act like an adjective. If you remember your parts of speech, adjectives are words that describe nouns. And that's exactly what an adjective clause does. An adjective clause describes a noun. This is what you want to use if you are trying to put together two pieces of information that both have a subject and a verb. You can put them together sometimes with dependent clauses, and one of these kinds of dependent clauses is the relative or the adjective clause, when you want to give more information about a noun in the sentence. So let's take a look right here. The doll is from Russia. What if I want to add more information about the doll? Sometimes you can do that in other ways. I have a doll right here, and I could say the doll with leather clothing is from Mongolia. I can use a prepositional phrase, with leather clothing, and that's fine. But that doesn't always work. Here I have a doll that does this, and I just can't use a prepositional phrase to describe that. I need to use a subject and a verb to describe it. So I'm going to need that adjective clause. So here is a sentence that many students make a mistake trying to put these pieces of information together with a comma. The doll is from Russia, comma, it opens in the middle. As you can see from my X, it's not good. It doesn't work in English to put together pieces of information and then just put a comma between them if they are complete clauses with subjects and verbs. So what are you going to do? Here's the adjective clause. The doll, which opens in the middle, is from Russia. Instead of using it, we're going to use a different kind of a pronoun. And this pronoun is called a relative pronoun. Relative pronouns are the words that come at the very beginning of the relative clause. And remember, if I say relative clause or adjective clause, it doesn't make any difference. It's the same thing. So relative pronouns, here's a list of the relative pronouns that can start a relative clause. I'm using which here. You'll notice which can be used for things, but not people. Sorry, I am not describing you as a person. Who, whom, and that can be used for people. That and which can be used for things. These are words that may be in subject or object position in the adjective clause. There are some other relative pronouns down here. Whose is a relative pronoun that shows possession. The doll whose pattern includes strawberries. I'm telling you that the pattern belongs to the doll. The doll whose pattern includes strawberries opens in the middle, and then I can finish my independent clause. We also have relative pronouns when, where, and why. These words are used in an adverb position in the clause, in the adjective clause. They're not used as subjects or objects. But what you really need to know right now is that when is used if you're describing a time, and where for a location, and why for a reason. Back to this. The doll, which opens in the middle, is from Russia. Where is the independent clause or the main clause here? We have the subject, the doll, And then you have to go all the way over here to get to the verb, is from Russia. Why did I put the adjective clause right in the middle? There's a good reason for it. It's because adjective clauses need to be together with the noun that they are describing. And in fact, they need to come directly after the noun. Now, you might remember that most adjectives in English come directly before a noun. Adjective clauses are the opposite. They come directly after the noun. But you do not want the adjective clause to come far away from the noun. You can't say the doll is from Russia, which opens in the middle. That would be a terrible sentence because you are now saying that Russia opens in the middle. And I don't think that's true. So you need to have the adjective clause next to the noun. You can also choose to use the other piece of information in the adjective clause. You're switching here. So the doll, which is from Russia, opens in the middle. That's good as well. What's the difference? The difference is the focus. What is your main idea? What information are you really trying to communicate? In general, the independent clause, the main clause, is the information you want to communicate the most. So, the doll is from Russia is my main idea here. This is just some extra information I'm throwing in as a bonus. In this sentence, the doll opens in the middle is the main idea, and I'm giving you bonus information that it's from Russia. Okay? There are some other things you need to know about relative pronouns. If you are using a preposition before the relative pronoun, you can only use whom or which. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Is that the man with whom you spoke? Where is the adjective clause? So you should say, okay, adjective clause, you see this word whom, you know that's a relative pronoun. This adjective clause actually starts with the preposition instead of the adjective, instead of the relative pronoun. So here is the adjective clause with whom you spoke. What is it describing? It's describing the man. Whom describes the man. That's why it is an adjective clause. It's describing a noun, and it's coming directly after the noun. Let's take a look at the structure in this clause. What is the verb in this clause? Here's our verb, spoke. And how about the subject? The subject is you. You spoke. Now, how can you finish that idea? You spoke. You need to have a preposition with the verb speak. You can use to or you can use with or others. But here I decided to use with because you can't say I spoke the man. It doesn't work. You need a preposition. I spoke with the man. Just because we're changing the position of the object doesn't mean that you can take out the preposition. We still need the preposition. So here's the preposition and here's the relative pronoun. The man with whom you spoke. When you have a preposition before the relative pronoun, you cannot use that. You cannot use who. You can only use whom for people, and you can only use which for things. Now, some of you may have learned about using whom for people. I'll tell you, it is very rare to do that today in most common English. The only situation where you absolutely must use whom is this situation after a preposition. Then you need to use whom. If it's not after a preposition, I'd say just use who. Here's another thing to notice. I did not write, is that the man with whom you spoke with him? You don't want to repeat information in the adjective clause. We've already given this structure. When you have a relative pronoun, you do not need to have another word in the sentence that is giving that same position. That's a common mistake. So here would be an example. The doll which opens in the middle, it is from Russia. Is that okay? Absolutely not. We already have our subject. You do not want to repeat that. Again, same idea. You don't put it here. Which it opens in the middle. We already have the subject. The subject is which. Okay, let's take a quick look at restrictive clauses, also called identifying clauses. We seem to like to have two names for different things, like adjective clauses or relative clauses. Here, we have two names for the same thing. Restrictive clauses, identifying clauses. What does this mean? This means we're talking about an adjective clause that identifies which noun you are talking about. When we say it identifies, it's not the same as describes. All adjective clauses describe nouns. To identify a noun means that you are looking or thinking about a number of possibilities, and to identify is to point out, to show, to say, this is the one. That's the idea of identify. It separates something from all of the others. I don't need this if I just have this one doll. It's not necessary for me to have this information. I can say the doll is from Russia, and you know which doll I'm talking about, right? No problem, I'm holding it. However, if I have two dolls and I say the doll is from Russia, you're going to say, which doll? You've got two dolls. Oh, yeah, that's right. So the doll which opens in the middle is from Russia. I'm giving you the information that it opens in the middle to identify which doll I'm telling you about. If this information identifies the noun, you need to take out the commas. That is a restrictive or identifying clause. It identifies which one you are talking about. It is essential to the meaning of the sentence. You can't take it out or the person doesn't know what you're talking about. You use no commas. You use no commas because a comma is like a cut. It's like a break. If you have commas, it means you can, it's like, commas are like handles. You could take it out of the sentence and you would still understand the meaning. Here, You can't do that. If I've got two dolls and I'm using this information to identify the doll, we need the information. No commas if you need the information. Same thing here. If you already know that this doll is from Russia and this doll is from Mongolia, and I'm telling you that the doll, which is from Russia, opens in the middle, then I'm identifying the doll with this information, and I need to have no commas. This is a very often confused topic among English learners. So you really want to try to get this idea that if there are no commas, like this, no commas, the information is necessary. It is essential to the meaning of the sentence. It is necessary to identify which noun you are talking about. One other thing to note is that you can use which or who anytime. It doesn't matter if it's restrictive or non-restrictive. However, that you might be thinking, oh, that's good for people and things. Excellent. I'll use it all the time. Not so fast. It's not that easy. If the clause is non-restrictive, if it is not required information, you cannot use that. Best way I tell my students to remember this is if you have a comma, you cannot use that. Okay? You can use which, you can use who, you can also use whom, but you cannot use a comma and that. If there's no comma, then it's okay. These are the basic, really quick elements about adjective clauses. You may need to go back and look at it again, listen to it, do some practice exercises. But that gives you just the skeleton ideas that you should definitely know about adjective clauses.